Good day, everyone. I am here to introduce to you our report. Lesson 3: Characteristics, Processes, and Ethics of Research. Table of Contents. Introduction. Characteristics of Research. Other characteristics of qualitative research. Types of research. Ethics and research. Functions of ethics. Some ethical principles. Ethical considerations in qualitative research. The research process.
This lesson introduces the characteristic of research, particularly qualitative research, their breadth and decades way of doing it, and going through the entire research process. Becoming familiar with the types of research will help you determine your choice for the locate or setting of your study. The characteristic of both qualitative researches are presented. However, a section to highlight qualitative research is discussed. Ethical consideration forms a part of this lesson as a significant element of the research process. Further, the discussion also presents the ethics of research, proving into its function and principle that must be observed by the researchers. Important consideration should be noted as the study is being conducted especially on matters concerning the participants of the studies. Characteristic of research. Following the major definition of research as the scientific investigation of phenomena which includes collection, presentation, analysis, and interpretation of facts. Strict adherence to ethical standard and planning and conducting in both qualitative and quantitative research is the most important. So now, I'm going to discuss the major characteristic of research. First is empirical research. Research is based on observation and experimentation of theories. It takes into account the direct experiences that views researchers' speculation with reality. Most researchers are based on real-life situations. In empirical research, we generate facts, not just opinions. When we conduct research investigation, of course, evidence is most important or required to generate our hypotheses or assumptions. Next is systematic research. Systematic research follows orderly, sequentially procedures. Based on valid procedures and principles, researchers are advised to refer to the research guidelines provided by or prescribed by the school. And systematic research, it takes time, a lot of patience. When writing research, there must no misstep or procedure and the process of identifying problem and reaching conclusion must be followed. Research as patient and unhurried activity. The third one is controlled research. In research, all variables except those are tested or experimented on are kept constant. In controlled, as a researchers, controlling an experiment is critically important to make sure that your observations are accurate and not random. Next is employs hypothesis. Hypothesis guides the investigation process. Research refers to our research for facts, answer to questions, and solution to problems. And employs hypothesis here is ensure the entire research methodology and scientific and valid. It helps to assure the probability whether research is success or failure. In progress, it helps provide links to underlying theories and specific research questions. Next is analytical. There is a critical analysis of all data used so that there is no error in research interpretations. In analytical research, we use analytical in research when detecting patterns. Brainstorm with your co-researchers, observe, interpret data, and make decisions based on multiple opinions provided by research data. 6 is active research. The term also refers to the research as unbiased and logical. All findings are logical based on empirical data, which, as earlier mentioned, are based on real-life situation. There is original work research. Requires effort to get at the researcher's own investigation and produce the data needed to complete the study. Go to the library to check on the originality of your work. Original work research originality is one of the most important criteria for a successful research investigation. Your research should be cited properly and properly rated to avoid allegation of academic dishonesty and plagiarism.
So next is we are going to talk about the other characteristics of qualitative research. Studies under qualitative research have certain characteristics in common that make them different from quantitative research. Some of these are concern for context and meaning, naturally occurring setting, human as instrument, descriptive data, and emergent design. So, first is the concern for context and meaning. Qualitative research is bounded by a particular context which the research aims to study. Since it is context bound, the human experience takes its meaning from social, historical, political, and cultural influences. So, qualitative research is like researchers look closely at people's experiences within a specific setting, like a school or community. This influences how people understand and react to things. For example, the rules people follow, the events in history, the government, and the culture they belong to all shape how they see things. So, in qualitative research, paying attention to the place and the environment helps us understand why people behave and think the way they do. Next is the naturally occurring setting. Qualitative research studies behavior as it happens naturally in a school, classroom, community, or an organization. It is based in the premise affects the findings. So, in qualitative research, looks at how people act in places like classrooms, communities, or workplaces where they behave naturally. For example, students might interact differently with each other in a classroom compared to how they interact with their friends outside of school. Similarly, employees might behave differently in a formal meeting at work compared to during a casual lunch break. Also, researchers believe that where people are and who they're with affects how they behave. So, by studying behavior in real settings, they can understand how the environment influences what people do and say. This helps researchers get a better picture of how people behave in their everyday lives. So, next is the humans as instruments. The researcher is the primary instrument for gathering and for analyzing data. He or she responds to the need of capturing the complexity of human experience, as well as in adapting and responding to the environment. Only a human being can do the fieldwork methods such as interviews, observations, and documentary analysis. The further explanation for this is in qualitative research, the researcher is like a detective using their own senses and skills to gather and make sense of information. They rely on methods like interviews, observations, and analyzing documents to understand people's experiences in a specific context. Imagine the researcher as the main tool, like a camera or a microphone, used to capture what's happening in a place like a classroom or a community. They talk to people, watch how they behave, and study documents to understand their world better. Next is the descriptive data. Data used in qualitative studies are in the form of words or pictures or other visuals rather than numbers or statistics. The participant experiences and perspectives culled from varied types of documents enable the researcher to present a holistic description of the subjects of the study. So, from the word descriptive, it describes what's happening in detail, like a telling a story, instead of focusing on the number or statistics. So, it shows that the data is gathered in the form of words, pictures, or other visuals. It's like painting a colorful picture that helps us understand it easier. Lastly, we have emergent design. In qualitative research, the design cannot be finalized at one set because the researcher continues to adjust his or her methods and ways of proceeding as the study progresses. It is also difficult to predict what may happen during the actual interactions between the researcher and the participants. So, in qualitative research, the design isn't fixed from the start because the researcher constantly adjusts their methods and approaches. Researchers change methods as they learn more. It's hard to predict what will happen during these interactions, so flexibility is the key. Now, we are going to talk about the three types of research: the library research, field research, and laboratory research. First, we have the library research. This type is done primarily in the library where answers to specific questions or problems are available. This involves searching through various resources such as books, journals, databases, and other materials to find answer to specific questions or solutions to problems. It often requires using different search strategies and critical evaluation of the gathered information to provide accurate and reliable answers. Next is field research. The research is done in the natural settings such as barangay, school, or factory. Field research involves studying things as they happen in real life. For example, in a barangay school, researchers might watch how teachers teach or how students learn. In a factory, they might look at how things are made and how workers do their jobs. This kind of research helps understand real world situation better and find ways to improve them. Lastly, we have laboratory research. This type is conducted in an artificial or controlled conditions by doing the study in a thoroughly specified and equipped area. We all know that in a laboratory means doing experiments. This is a special room with all the right tools and conditions. Scientists use labs to carefully control how they test things so they can learn more about how stuff works. It's like doing a science experiment in a place where everything is set up just right. And by this, it enables scientists to conduct experiments safely and accurately, leading to reliable data and conclusions. The human element of qualitative inquiry is both strength and weakness. Its strength in fully using human insight and experience, its weakness is being so heavily dependent on the research skill, training, intellect, discipline, and creativity. The researcher is the instrument of qualitative inquiry, so the quality of the research depends heavily on the qualities of the human being.
Ethics of research. The most common way of defining ethics is to refer to it as norms for conduct that distinguish between acceptable and unacceptable behavior. These are direct networks among people because they are recognize some common ethic norms but interpret, apply, and balance them in different ways in the light of their own values and experiences. Another way of defining ethics is to consider it as a method, procedure, or perspective for deciding how to act and for analyzing complex problems and issues. For instance, In considering a complex issue like global warming, one may take an economic, ecological, political, or ethical perspective on the matter. While an economist might examine the costs and benefits of various policies related to global warming, an environmental ethicist could examine the ethical values and principles at stake. To be ethical, a research project needs to be designed to create valid outcomes if it is believed to be pursuing truth. Flake argues that qualitative researchers need to be vigilant or positivist about ensuring the validity and reliability of their studies, even, even if they choose to use other terms such as credibility and authenticity in the trustworthiness of their studies. And positivist research, ethical principles emerge frequently around the relationship of researchers to the source provider for permission to carry out research to the data providers, and to the public who want to know the outcomes. Researchers have a duty to ensure that they do not deliberately mislead participants as the nature of the research. Researchers have a duty to avoid causing both physical and psychological difficulties to participants and to the socio-political environments in which and with which they work. In both virtual and physical worlds, researchers are ethically bound to maintain the privacy of participants, including confidential for any information they give, and anonymity for the identity. Another way of defining ethics is to consider it as a method, procedure, or perspective for deciding how to act and for analyzing complex problems and issues. For instance, in considering a complex issue like global warming, one may take an economic, ecological, political, or ethical perspective on the matter. While an economist might examine the costs and benefits of various policies related to global warming, an environmental ethicist could examine the ethical values and principles at stake. To be ethical, a research project needs to be designed to create valid outcomes if it is believed to be pursuing truth. Flake argues that qualitative researchers need to be vigilant or positivist about ensuring the validity and reliability of their studies, even, even if they choose to use other terms such as credibility and authenticity in the trustworthiness of their studies. And positivist research, ethical principles emerge frequently around the relationship of researchers to the source provider for permission to carry out research to the data providers, and to the public who want to know the outcomes. Researchers have a duty to ensure that they do not deliberately mislead participants as the nature of the research. Researchers have a duty to avoid causing both physical and psychological difficulties to participants and to the socio-political environments in which and with which they work. In both virtual and physical worlds, researchers are ethically bound to maintain the privacy of participants, including confidential for any information they give, and anonymity for the identity. Research ethics involve the application of fundamental ethical principles to a variety of topics involving research. The academic research enterprise is built on a foundation of trust. Researchers trust that the results reported by the other are heard. Society trusts that the result of research reflect an honest attempt to describe the world accurately and without bias. Research ethics is different throughout the various types of educational communities. Research in format participating in individual or group interview are often required to sign an an informed consent from which outlines the nature of the project. They are assured anonymity and will be referred to using pseudonym. Although there is a need to negotiate and dialogue, it is the researcher's ethical responsibility not to harm the human they are studying. They also have a responsibility to science and the public, as well as the future students. Now let's talk about functions of ethics. Ethics is an important component in research writing, shows the following function. Norms promote the aim of research such as knowledge, truth, and evidence of error. Ethical standards promote the values that are essential to collaborate work such as trust, accountability, mutual respect, and fairness. Ethical norms ensure that the researchers can be held accountable to the public. Ethical norms in research is research that helps build public support quality and integrity of research.
So today, I'm going to discuss some ethical principles. Enumerated below are words and phrases that correspond to principles, in which actions exhibited while doing research are anchored on. During your classroom discussion, how they can become standards for ethical behavior will be clearer to you. Honesty, objectivity, integrity, carefulness, openness, respect for intellectual property, confidentiality, responsible publication, respect for colleagues, social responsibility, non discrimination, competence, and legality. So, a common cause of ethical challenges is conflict of interest between the researcher and what is being researched on. A case in point is when the researcher may be so excited about his or her research idea and would like to collect high quality data from those most closely affected by what is being studied. However, there is a risk that the researcher may be tempted to consider unethical research practice in order to try to obtain and or retain some of the data. Ethical risks in research are spread across many fields, and they may not be apparent at the onset of the research. What a research can do is to be aware of its potential and plan what to do about it rather than to ignore it. Therefore, the researcher ethics skills that needs to also to be developed are to be able to identify the ethical issues in the study, to know and be prepared how to add them. Ethical considerations in qualitative research. When doing a qualitative inquiry, certain issues may arise. Let us consider ethical issues that may be inherent in qualitative research. First, the kind of information obtained because of the length and personal interaction that ensues when doing a qualitative inquiry may give rise to an issue or issues. The researcher may uncover or get hold of practices that may not be acceptable. What then does he or she do? One rule that must always be followed is that the person is obliged to report practice such as child abuse, drug use, abusive teachers, and the like. Second, with regard to the researcher's relationship to the participants, the researcher is expected to act professionally, maintaining respect towards them. The issue of anonymity and confidentiality are to be observed. In field notes, particularly when conducting a sensitive research, false name or code numbers are used to keep track of what information came from whom without revealing their identities. Third, the researcher is expected to give back to the subjects, participants of the research, and to show appreciation for their commitment of time, effort, and cooperation. These acts may be to provide a written report, present findings in an assembly, give assistance or advice on other research projects at their workplace, and others. Fourth, the researcher writes a letter and seeks to be allowed to conduct a study. If changes happen in the course of the investigation, he or she needs to be an approval for the continuance of the study. So here, I am about to show you the research process. Research is a process that requires patience and thought. There is no easy way to make certain that you have exhausted every resource and fund the best research. Research is more of an art rather than a science. Below is a diagrammatic presentation of the steps taken when doing research. Number 1, define research problem. Number 2, review the literature. Number 3, formulate hypothesis. Number 4, design research. Number 5, collect data. Number 6, interpret and report. Number 7, analyze data.
Lesson 4: Difference between quantitative and qualitative research. This lesson presents primarily the comparison between quantitative and qualitative research. Especially relevant are the similarities and contrasts between two broad categories of research. The differentiation reflects different views, resulting to assumption and dialogues to explain further comparison. Knowing not only the difference between but also the similarities of these two categories will help familiarize you with the purposes, types and forms of data needed, methods and approaches to be employed, and your role as a researcher among others. Overall, the lesson provides a fuller understanding of research with focus on qualitative research. So for this topic, we're going to talk about broad categories of research. Research can be divided into broad categories of qualitative and quantitative research, and a number of approaches can be identified, some of which are the action research, ethnographic study, case study, experimental research, and participatory research. Both qualitative and quantitative research stem from different philosophical assumptions. These assumptions shape the way researchers look at the problems and analyze gathered data. Qualitative research is based on an approach which sees the individual and the world around him or her as interconnected. It sees social reality as unique, and therefore human behavior can only be understood by focusing on the event based on their meanings for the people involved. It is what people experience, how they do and perform as well as they think and feel. This type of research is associated with research method using anthropology, history, and other social science. In addition, qualitative research has its roots in positivism, a philosophic view formulated in Europe in the 19th century. Two beliefs held by positives are general principle or laws govern the social world, and observation in the primary source of the dependable knowledge.
As used in research, positivism is considered as a traditional scientific method which involves hypothesis, testing, and objective data gathering. Findings are open to replication by other researchers. I want to take a research is generally associated with research in the natural science. Over time, a new methodology came to field resulting in the mixed methods which combine both quantitative and qualitative methods in the same study. It is believed that this combined method provides a more complete explanation of the research findings than using one method alone. However, it should be noted that the mixed methods does not simply collect and analyze both kinds of data, but combine the two methods which can be greater than either qualitative and quantitative research.
So I will discuss to you the similarities of quantitative and qualitative research. You have examined and compared qualitative and quantitative categories of research. Further, Batchman 2009 identifies the following commonalities. First is empirical research is aimed at creating new knowledge. Second, research creates knowledge by observing phenomena. Third, all the entities of interest like attitudes, motivates, and learning can be inferred from observing what people do or say in given setting. Fourth, All researchers are concerned about the universality of ideas, of expressing an idea in a general statement, that is, they desire to find meaning for the research results beyond the particular study. Qualitative research deals with designs, techniques, and measures that do not produce discrete numerical data. It includes extensive narrative data in order to gain insights into phenomena. On the other, quantitative research includes designs, techniques, and measures that produce numerical or quantitative data, which analysis is mainly statistical. In writing research papers and studies, two types of investigations are used. The terms qualitative and quantitative apply to two types of perspective reasoning used often when conducting research.
Next, we are going to talk about qualitative research. Qualitative research deals with science, techniques, and measures that do not produce discrete numerical data. It includes extensive narrative data in order to gain insights into phenomena. On the other, quantitative research includes designs, techniques, and measures that produce numerical or quantitative data which analysis is mainly statistical. In writing research papers and studies, two types of investigations are used. The term qualitative and quantitative apply to two types of perspective reasoning, used often when conducting research. Qualitative research is primarily an exploratory research. It is used to give an understanding of underlying reasons, opinions, and motivations. The investigation provides insights into the problem or help to develop ideas or hypotheses for potential qualitative research. It is also used to uncover trends and thought and opinions and dig deeper into the problem. The sample size is typically small. Qualitative research is more flexible, allowing more naturalness and acclimatization for the interaction and collaboration between the researcher and participant. Qualitative research is the 2000s also has been characterized by concern with everyday categorization and ordinary storytelling. The narrative term is producing an enormous literature as researchers present sensitivity concepts and perspectives that have been focused on opinions and motivations. Further, it is used to create insights into the problem being investigated. It is a research method most often used in the analysis of literature, though it can also be utilized for historical review, sociological studies, ethical experiments, and the investigation into personality and behavior. The aims vary with the disciplinary background, such as psychology seeking together the reasons that govern a particular behavior. It examines the why, where, when, or who of a given study. Qualitative research has a strong basis in the field of sociology, political science, and social work, and special education. A popular method utilized in this kind of research in the case study. Qualitative research deals with designs, techniques, and measures that do not produce discrete numerical data. It involves extensive narrative data in order to gain insights into phenomena. On the other hand, quantitative research includes designs, techniques, and measures that produce numerical or quantitative data, that analysis of which is mainly statistical. Qualitative research seeks to collect, integrate, and present data from a variety of sources of evidence as part of a given study. Instead of giving a singular definition of qualitative research, you might consider five features according to Yan 2011, namely, number one, studying the meaning of peoples who live under the real world. Conditioned people will not limited by confines of a laboratory. Number two, representing the views and perspective of the people or participants of the study and the results of research mirror of the people who live them, not by the researcher.
Number three, covering the contextual condition within which people live, the social institution and environmental conditions within which live. They may influence all human events. Number four, contributing insights into existing or emerging concepts may help or explain human social behavior. Research can be instances for developing new concepts. Number five, striving to use multiple sources of evidence is better than relying on a single source alone.
Quantitative research. Quantitative research is more often associated with hard data. This research is used to quantify, that is, to put numerical equivalence to findings. This type of research is not limited to mathematics. Although math and statistics are just the means used, attitudes, opinions, and behaviors, even when they are subjective in nature, can be compared quantitatively in order to produce results. Quantitative research is used to quantify the problem by way of generating mathematical data or data that can be transformed into usable statistics. It quantifies altitudes, opinions, behaviors, and other defined variables and generalized results from a large sample of populations and discuss the quantitative relation between the participants in the research. It is very to understand the meaning of quantitative because quantitative involves collecting data from many respondents and analyzing the results to identify trends, patterns, and etc.